Most men think respect disappears when a woman gets angry, or when there's a big argument. But that's not how it actually happens. Respect doesn't break loudly. It erodes quietly, almost invisibly. And the dangerous part? By the time you notice it, she has already emotionally repositioned you in her mind. There are 3 psychological stages where this shift happens. And once you understand them, you start seeing what most men completely miss in relationships. So here's the real question. Are you actually losing her respect right now, without even realizing it? In this video, we're going to break down exactly how respect changes in a woman's perception over time. Not from a toxic or blame perspective, but from a psychological one. Based on patterns studied in relationship dynamics, emotional safety theory, and attachment behavior. You'll learn the 3 subtle stages where attraction shifts into emotional distance, and more importantly, how men unknowingly accelerate it without realizing. By the end, you won't just understand women better, you'll understand the invisible signals your behavior might be sending right now, and once you see them, you can't unsee them. Let's go into it. It usually starts in a moment that feels completely normal. You text her faster, you become more available, you explain yourself more, you try to make things smoother. At first, she responds positively. It feels like connection. But psychologically, something shifts. In early attraction, there's a concept in psychology called uncertainty-driven value. When someone is slightly unpredictable, the brain assigns more attention and importance to them. But when you become too predictable, too available, too emotionally transparent, the nervous system stops scanning you as interesting. You become familiar, and familiarity removes tension. And without tension, respect hasn't disappeared yet, but curiosity has started to decline. Here's the key moment. She doesn't pull away suddenly, she just starts initiating less, responding slower, observing more than engaging. Most men miss this completely because nothing bad has happened. But this is the first crack. And if you don't adjust here, the next stage becomes inevitable. Transitioning. This stage is very subtle, and most men misinterpret it as comfort. You start noticing that you're the one maintaining momentum. You're initiating conversations, planning things, filling silences, explaining feelings more than receiving them. At first it feels like investment, but psychologically something deeper is happening. In emotional dynamics, there's a principle called perceived leadership imbalance. It's when one person begins to carry the emotional direction of the relationship. And when that happens consistently, the other person unconsciously assigns them less respect. Not because they're bad, but because the dynamic feels one-sided. And here's the critical misunderstanding. She doesn't consciously decide, I respect him less now. It happens as a feeling, a shift in internal emotional posture. She starts relaxing into receiving rather than engaging, and you start over-functioning emotionally to maintain connection. This is where men often say, she used to be more into me. But what really changed was the emotional balance, and if that imbalance continues, we reach the 3rd stage. Now this is the stage where things become obvious, but emotionally confusing. She's still there, still replying, still talking, but something feels missing. The warmth is gone. The enthusiasm is lower. You feel like you're talking to someone who is present, but not emotionally participating. This is where emotional safety has been replaced by emotional uncertainty. In attachment psychology, people withdraw energy when they no longer feel secure engagement. Not physical safety, emotional predictability and stability. If she feels like the dynamic is slightly heavy, unbalanced, or emotionally demanding, she begins to protect her internal space. And protection looks like distance, short replies, delayed responses, less curiosity. And here's the hard truth. At this stage, she hasn't lost interest. She has stopped emotionally investing. And respect at this point? It doesn't disappear, it just becomes neutral. And neutral is dangerous, because it's the beginning of emotional exit. Transitioning. Let me ask you something most men never consider. Have you ever noticed that the moment you start trying harder, the relationship feels like it's slipping further away? That's not random, because effort without emotional balance doesn't create attraction. It creates pressure, and pressure always reduces respect over time. This is the stage where she begins mentally repositioning you. not consciously, subconsciously. She starts asking internal questions like, do I feel more grounded with him or without him? Am I emotionally expanding or shrinking in this dynamic? And here's the key. Women don't evaluate men based on words at this stage. They evaluate emotional experience. If being with you feels slightly unstable, overly intense, or emotionally one-directional, she starts imagining distance as relief. Not because she wants to leave, but because her nervous system is trying to restore balance. This is why sometimes women don't fight for the relationship anymore. They've already started detaching internally while still physically present. And that's the most dangerous phase for men who don't recognize it. At this stage, everything looks normal on the surface. But emotionally, she has already reduced your significance in her internal world. You are no longer a priority reference point in her thoughts. You are just part of her routine. Messages are polite. Interaction is neutral. Emotion is minimal, and here's what most men misunderstand. This isn't anger, it's not drama, it's not even dislike. It's emotional completion of detachment. The respect didn't vanish in one moment. It dissolved across small, repeated emotional experiences. And by the time it reaches here, rebuilding it becomes significantly harder. Not impossible, but it requires complete behavioral reset, not emotional pleading. Here's the deeper truth behind all of this. Respect in relationships is not demanded. It's not argued for. And it's definitely not maintained through emotional intensity. It's created through emotional balance. The moment you start over-investing emotionally, you don't increase connection. You increase pressure. And pressure makes people withdraw, not because they don't care, but because they can no longer feel their own space inside the dynamic. And maybe the hardest truth is this. Most men don't lose women suddenly. They lose them slowly, through small emotional imbalances they never corrected. Not because they weren't good enough, but because they didn't understand the psychology of emotional perception. If this resonated with you, take a second and reflect honestly. Which stage do you think most men miss the earliest? Because awareness is the first step to changing any pattern. And if you want the next level of understanding, in the next video we're going to break down something even deeper. The subtle behaviors that silently rebuild attraction without chasing or over-explaining. Until then, remember this. People don't lose attraction loudly. They drift away quietly, one emotional moment at a time.